Allegheny. A few years ago, my curiosity led me to explore the sprawling and infamous Allegheny Lunatic Asylum. This asylum, located in Western Virginia, is massive, but it's also decaying and is a historical relic for the infamous past. The following is a chilling account of my visit. The asylum's imposing facade loomed before me, casting a shadow over the once thriving town of Weston. The heavy wooden doors creaked open reluctantly, revealing a dimly lit corridor that stretched endlessly into the distance. As I ventured deeper into the asylum, my footsteps echoed through the narrow hallways. The cold, stale air seemed to cling to my skin, as if the very walls absorbed the history of anguish and suffering. The first thing that struck me was the silence. It was a stillness that blanketed the entire asylum, occasionally broken by distant noises. And by distant noises, I very much mean knocks on the wall, scratches, and even whispers. That being said, the place was empty, devoid of life, and I couldn't help but wonder what it must have been like when it was teeming with patients. I explored the small, windowless rooms, each one telling a different story of confinement and despair. Stray beams of pale sunlight struggled through the grime-covered windows, casting shadows on the peeling wallpaper. It was hard to believe that human beings had once inhabited these cramped cells. One room in particular caught my attention. It was an isolation cell, a tiny, padded chamber with nothing but a narrow bed bolted to the floor. The walls were stained, and the padding had long since deteriorated. I couldn't help but feel a sense of claustrophobia and unease as I stepped inside. I continued on exploring, and couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched by a million eyes. I would hear faint whispers that seemed to emanate from the very walls of where I was located. These were probably the voices of the past, the tormented cries of those who had been confined within the walls. It was a chilling reminder of all the suffering that had taken place here, and also scared me to death. The asylum was a maze of endless hallways, each one more haunting than the last. The faded remnants of patient art and graffiti adorned the walls, showcasing exactly how many people had come through here. After hearing a few more noises, I decided it was time to leave Allegheny, as something inside me told me that I wasn't welcome. Upon leaving the asylum, an overwhelming sense of sorrow hit me like a ton of bricks. I never usually got affected when doing this type of stuff, but this time made me never want to go back to Allegheny. Pennhurst Asylum. A few years ago, my insatiable curiosity led me to Pennhurst Asylum in Spring City, Pennsylvania, a place shrouded in darkness and grim history. My visit to this notorious institution would become an unforgettable descent into horror, devoid of supernatural, but saturated with chilling truth. Pennhurst Asylum was an ominous location, weathered, dilapidated, and it seemed to look at me with malevolent intent. Equipped with my camera, I crossed the threshold into the abandoned asylum, plunging into the heart of a nightmarish past. This asylum was known for its horrendous things that went on in the night, which involved patients getting experimented on, amongst other things. Inside, the stillness was suffocating, and the asylum itself was a hollow shell of what it used to be, a place of torment that had long since swallowed the tortured souls within. My journey commenced with the exploration of the maze-like hallways, the peeling paint, the crumbling walls, and the children's drawings that lasted. These messages from the damned, forever etched into the asylum's walls, made me feel like I was stepping into the past. Although I don't believe in ghosts and spirits, if any place was haunted, it would be this one. One room etched its terror into my memory. It was a small, lightless cell with a single rusted bed frame. The simplicity of the room conveyed the horrors that had transpired. If I was to spend even more than a night in this room, I would go crazy myself. As I ventured deeper into Pennhurst, I couldn't help but feel the sorrow that all these patients had once felt. It was through the sins of the institution that it had ended, manifesting as a palpable presence even today. I couldn't escape the disquieting feeling that I was being watched here, and that the restless spirits of the past were trying to grab onto me to let them escape. The scariest part of this experience was the whispers. I would hear faint whispers and voices every now and then, and I wouldn't really know where they were coming from. Part of me believes that it was in the dark, and my mind was clawing at its own insanity, representing exactly what had happened in this place. I decided to leave Pennhurst at that moment, as what I was experiencing was way too much for me to handle. Pennhurst was a monument to agony, a place where the torment of the past clung like a relentless specter, waiting to torment souls who dared enter. I'm not saying I'm not a skeptic anymore, but what I am saying is what I experienced there that night was unexplainable. That place has a way of making you feel like you're not doing the right thing just by being there, but it's important that we don't forget that past, as that past is still trying to be erased from history. Shadows and rolling hills. I've always loved the darker subjects of this world, and this led me to explore the infamous Rolling Hills Asylum in East Bethany, New York. The asylum's dark history and unsettling reputation had always intrigued me, but what I encountered at that asylum transcended anything I've ever thought of, and honestly made me a believer. I approached the imposing, decaying structure as a sense of foreboding settled over me, telling me to not go in. Armed with my camera, of course, I went in regardless because I wanted to check out the unsettling stories that had surrounded this place. Inside, it was as silent as any other asylum or empty place would now be. I felt like even if you were to echo, it wouldn't venture very far and would stay in your relative area, which was weird to me. My exploration commenced with walking down the corridor to my left, and it seemed to stretch onwards endlessly. This was the area I believed that a giant used to live in, who was dropped off by parents and left there for dead. By giant, I mean this very tall, about 7-foot man, who was known for peeking out into the hallways and looking at unexpected visitors. I would keep on walking through the asylum, and sometimes feel like it was alive itself. The air would grow dense, and I'd feel like an unseen presence was watching over me. At one point, I looked down the hallway, farther down to my left, and as my eyes got used to the dark, I saw exactly what I didn't want to see. A giant shadow figure looking my way, not moving, but just staring with curiosity. I stood there in shock for 1 second, not daring to look away, but as soon as I did, I turned back, and it was gone. This humanoid silhouette seemed to move with an unnatural fluidity, and the second I turned, it would just disappear. As soon as I experienced that, my night was quickly over, and everything I'd came for and searched for had proven to be true. Rolling Hills Asylum was definitely malevolent, and I can certainly tell you without a shadow of a doubt that I'll never be returning to that place.